Alright everybody, welcome back. Let's see if we can't get this alignment figured out. Alright.
So if any of you are familiar with Bad Obsession Motorsports and their Project Binky, this thing may look a little bit familiar. This is their Make the Noise level, except the smaller version of it, and I'm going to use it to hopefully get my alignment taken care of. But I just thought, you know, if you haven't seen the Bad Obsession Motorsport stuff, I'll put a link up above right now. I would recommend you stop watching this video and go watch some of theirs. That, if nothing else, just for the sheer competence at being able to fabricate absolutely anything, especially brackets. So moving on. Got my high-tech set up here. I've got the gauge for the Digipass, the angle finder, and then I've got a level. And I'm going to set it up on the tire standing up like this. This level on here is to make me get sure I get 90 degrees, so I'm going to go off on that liquid level at the bottom to make sure it's straight up and down on the tire. And then this level is going to measure this way, this angle, and it's going to give me the camber of the wheel. So that's the intention here. So pretty straightforward on the way to do this, and I'll show you here how I'm going to set it up. So right now the wheel is at 0, not turned in any direction at all. I'm going to turn it to 20 degrees. I'm going to put the measurement tool up against the wheel, make sure that I'm at 90 degrees perpendicular to the floor, and this floor is relatively level. I checked it out. It's with my laser level, it's about as level as it's going to get. And then I'm going to measure the angle. I'm going to zero out the angle finder at that point so that it's relative, and then I'm going to turn it 20 degrees to the opposite direction, and that should give me that difference in the angles that it measures between those two, from going 20 degrees in one to the 20 degrees in the other direction. That should be my caster. So now with it at 0, I'm not real sure if it's like necessarily important that I measure this angle right here. I guess if nothing else, I can see that I'm going to be able to get a 90 degrees. And I'm looking at about 89.7, so there's not a whole lot of camber on this guy. 89.8, so 0.2 degrees of camber. Gonna have to probably looking at adjusting that. So now I'll turn it 20 degrees in one direction, and it's as best as I can figure. It doesn't really matter which direction you go in. All right, now we'll measure the angle here. Try to get it as perpendicular as possible. Alright, 89.9. Keeping it as perpendicular as possible. Hit the relative button. Alright, we'll come back. Alright, we're looking at about 1.7 degrees. So I'll write that down, and that's positive. 1.7 degrees positive. Alright, so I'm going to go over to the other side, do the same exact thing, and I'll come back with the results on that. So if I've done that right, I got 1.8 degrees positive on the other side. If I've done that right, I'm out by quite a bit, about 2 degrees. And supposedly each shim is worth a degree. So to decrease my, or increase my caster angle, I need to remove shims from the back. I'll show you this here. So the caster angle, to decrease, add shims to the front, or remove shims from the rear, and to increase, reverse the procedure. For camber, I'm only looking at about 0.2 of a degree in camber. To increase, reverse the procedure, or to decrease, add an equal number of shims to both brackets. Now I do have a bunch of shims left from the black car. I think I have them here buried somewhere. So I think I can make it work with the shims. The other concern here is this is not static laden. Now I mentioned that in my last video, but I said I would explain it, but I didn't really. So what static laden means, in the way that the workshop manual defines it, the condition is obtained by placing a 150-pound weight on each front seat and 2 similar weights on the rear seat. Now there's no rear seat. It's talking about the Herald there, or the Vitesse. But I don't have 150 pounds laying around that's easy to get to, at least that I want to put on my brand new seats. So there's a website out there that provides unladen angles. I'm going to look at that real quick and see if it makes a difference for caster or camber. So doing a little bit of calculations, the way that I figure it, based on my camber being almost 0, just a tad bit positive, and the spec being about 2 degrees, and my caster being about 1.7 degrees, and the spec being about 3 with it unladen, according to the website triumphspitfire.com. By the way, it's got a whole bunch of specs and things like that, pretty convenient. The way that I figure with 3 shims on each, if I pull all the shims out of the back and one of the shims out of the front, that should zero that guy, well, not zero it up, but that should make this tire on the driver's side satisfactory for camber and caster. So I got the car partially jacked up right now. I'm going to get it up on jack stands so that I can then get the jack underneath the suspension here and try to relieve some of the pressure, because I think if I have it with it hanging, it's going to be hard to get those shims out. And I'm just going to kind of play around, I guess, a little bit here and see what happens. So these bottom A-arm brackets attach right here, and there's one bolt that goes through the frame. Just need to loosen that up. I'm not going to remove that all the way, and of course I'll have to torque it back up when I'm done here. But hopefully, like I said, these shims will be relatively loose. So I'll have to get under the car here. 9/16 I think it is. It might be a 5/8, but I'll go ahead and loosen them up and see if I can get some shims out. So there's the front one there, and the back one there in the shadow. So I've got them loose. The washers are loose. I'm going to use a little screwdriver here. You can probably not see, but there's my finger. Where is my finger? Right there is the bottom of the arm. So I'm going to put a little screwdriver there and knock some of these out. Remember, I'm keeping one up here and none on the back. And so here's the underside of the car. No oil leaks leaking out all over the place. Can't believe that. So got lucky, I guess, on that one. One of the things you got going on here is you got the steering boot, and here's a shim. So you got it when you go to pop them up and try to lift them out, you're going to run into that steering boot. Thankfully, they've got a very deep neck, so you can just bump it up a little bit and then just spin it essentially inside the bracket and then pull it out through the front. You don't have enough room to go to the back, so that's just something to watch out for if you're going to do this. So now down to one shim on the front, so I'm going to go to the back and get all of those out and then tighten it up, put the car back down, and see if I get lucky. This is pretty straightforward to do, so even if I'm all wrong here and I got to put it all back, I don't think it's going to be too bad. All right, that adjustment's made. I'm going to put the car back down, roll it back and forth a couple times, try to settle the suspension, go all the way to the back of the garage door and roll it back forward. Another thing I wanted to point out that I just had to adjust actually is if you've got wheel weights on the outside, you want to try to make sure that your wheel weights are not going to be in your way. In other words, somewhere in the vertical. So I've got it set here where the tires have got the wheel weights in the front and the wheel weight in the back on the other side, I think. So that way, as I roll the car back and forth, when I get back to about this point, the wheel weights are not going to be in my way of measuring and throw off the camber measurement. Alright, got the stuff all adjusted and tight. Let's see what happens here. Alright, so we're right on about 2 degrees of camber right now, which is essentially right what I wanted at, 2 plus or minus 1 degree. Yep, so positive 2, so that's good. So now we're going to turn the wheel 20 degrees. We'll go backwards first this time. Alright, so 87.5, but we zeroed it. So now we'll go 20 degrees in the other direction. For a relative reading of 4.2, 4.1. Alright, so we're going to repeat that measurement. Alright, we're looking about, again, 4.3, 4.4. So I'm going to take that. So according to the website, it's about 3 degrees plus or minus 1 when it's unladen. So as it sits right now, so at 4.5 or so, I'm a little bit too much for my caster. Camber I like. So given the result that I've got, I'm going to try to add 1 shim to the front. I'm going to try to just loosen it up and see if I can sneak it in there without jacking the car up again. and all that stuff. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to do that. I'm not sure if that's going to affect my camber. I think it's going to, but we'll see. I'll try a quick little experiment. So it'll be 2 shims in the front and none in the back. My caster is about 4.4 degrees, and unladen like this, it says it should be about 3 plus or minus 1. So I'd rather err on a little bit smaller of a caster. That was really easy. Definitely able to add a shim without taking the car up off the ground or anything like that. So that's kind of like that. So now I'll just measure my caster here, or my camber, excuse me, here real quick. And we're at 88.1, so 1.9 degrees there. So that's good. Hopefully I get lucky here. Again, double check, my camber is supposed to be 2 degrees. Yep, 2 degrees positive. And about 4 degrees. So I think I'll stick with 4 degrees, 3 plus or minus 1, right? Yep, 3 plus or minus 1, so I'm going to stick with 4 degrees there. So that's cool. Can't believe this is actually working. You have to convince me that I'm screwing something up. So now I'll go to the other side and do the same types of measurements, do the same types of adjustments that I need to do, and I'll come back and I'll give you the results. Alright, so the other one comes in good with no adjustments necessary. I've got 1 shim in the front and nothing in the back. So this driver's side's a little bit closer to that. I don't know that that really means anything, but I did keep track of how many shims were in what and all that kind of stuff. So, and then I went back through some notes and things like that, and I did replace a lower A-arm at some point because one of the holes down here for where the trunnion or the shock, one of those, had rounded out pretty good. So that may be what was going on there. Maybe I did having a little adjustment. So obviously a test drive is in order here, but I'm happy with the caster and camber now. So now I'm going to revisit measuring up on the toe. And I'm going to take some basic measurements real quick, just distances to frames and center lines and things like that, and see if I can determine if I've got anything that's grossly off. If you can remember, I showed you in the last video where my tires were not really all that even, so I've been stewing on that and really can't come up with anything. So I'm just going to take some arbitrary measurements here from stuff that should be relatively static and see if I can't figure anything out. So yeah, I got those darn strings again. However, I think I've got it this time. So instead of trying to measure stuff off the wheels and as much as I hate to say understand what's happening, I essentially set it up to try to give me a balance between the two sides. So the distance between the strings and the front wheels on both sides and the distance between the strings and the rear wheels on both sides are equal. And then the distance between the strings themselves side to side is also equal, which is where I think we want to be. So if I do that and I take the measurement, I get about 0.6 inches, give or take, between the front and the back as far as the strings, with the rear wheels being 0.6 inches further away from the string. Now that makes sense because the track in the back is smaller. Why I couldn't do that before, I don't really know. But I'm going to go around, I'm going to check everything again, but I'm about 56 3/4 inches between the strings, front and back, and about 2.9 inches and about 3.6 inches or 2.9 inches between the string and the front wheel hubs, and about 3.6 inches between the string and the rear wheel hub. So I think some of it came down to the fact that where I was measuring from in the center of the wheel wasn't really the actual track, right? So the track is measured from the center of the tire, and there's no real easy way to do that without, I don't know. I don't know how I would do that without measuring from the sides, and then that destroys you because you're going to measure the toe. So again, I'm going to go around, I'm going to double check everything, make sure everything's still lined up, try not to kick a jack stand while I'm doing that, and then go ahead and measure the toe. So now I've got the rope all set up. Everything's good to go. I'm going to measure the toe, and essentially all the toe is the difference between, is going to be the difference between the distance between the string and the back side of the wheel and the string and the front side of the wheel. Now I've got this wheel weight, I got it all set up for camber and caster, now it's in my way for toe. I'm going to measure to the 32nd of the inch because it's a 1/16 to 2/16 spec, or a 16th to an 1/8. So I figure 30 seconds will give me my best guess here. So we're looking at 1 and 24 30 seconds on the back. And on the front we're looking at just about the same thing, about 1 and 24 30 seconds. So that's pretty much right on there. If anything, it might be a 1/16 of an inch in, so I might not play with that one at all. Go to the other side, I'll check the other side. Well, surprisingly enough, I got about a 1/16 of an inch toe in on the driver's side and about a 1/16 of an inch toe in on the passenger side. So I'm not going to touch anything. So I did adjust. The only thing I really adjusted now is the camber and caster on the driver's side front. And I will have to go back and study what I replaced under there. I don't even know that I'm going to be able to figure it out because I don't think I took that precise of records. But so at least I got the toe set up, luckily, I guess. Driving the car, the steering wheel is or has been a little bit crooked. So what I don't know what to do about that. It's a little wet out right now, unfortunately. Yeah, a little wet out. I don't really want to take a chance of taking the car out and getting soaked or running through mud puddles or something. I don't know, we'll see. I'll think about it. Got the ashtray in. I used little number 4 screws to put the hinge on. Doesn't sit flush on the dash. I think that's some of it, so I may revisit that, but it's in there for now. Next up, I'm going to try to fix this bumper back here. Essentially what's happening, I think, is this hole is not lining up properly enough with the overrider and it's causing it to be crooked. So I'm going to either take a little burr wheel or something like that and try to get that slot a little bit more elongated, get it lined up in here and see what it looks like and go from there. The other one is good. It's just that one's crooked. Alright, so that's better. Still a little crooked, actually, but I don't think tightening it up, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it much better than that, so it is what it is. So I was able to just slide the gas tank back and leave it connected up and be able to get to that's the bolt that I need to worry about. So I had to take the cap off. I obviously had to take the rear fascia off, and then the gas cover, the vanity cover for the gas tank back here, pull the wires real quick, which I'm also rerouting a little bit more cleanly, and just kind of slide the thing back and put a little bit of pressure on the tube, which not my biggest fan of doing that, but it's not, I mean, it's easily pliable. So now I'll go in, slide underneath, get that spacer back in there hopefully, and then just tighten the car back down. So obviously tight quarters under here, but right to the right of the shock tower, that upper bolt there is essentially where the I can't get my head under there and I can't see the screen that well, but that's where that spacer is. So I jacked up the body of the car just a little bit, loosened that bolt, jacked the body of the car up a little bit just to give me some more room in there. I was able to slide that in, and since it's like looking like a Pac-Man thing, you can tell when you're on the bolt. So I've done that. So now I'll lower the car body back down, tighten everything up, put it all back together. Got the gas tank back in, got the bolt tightened and all that kind of good stuff. Just cleaning stuff up a little bit here. I taped off or rerouted the fuel sender thing and went behind and in between the fender and the support there and kind of up underneath the carpet. Taped it to the tank itself.
the board kind of, when you put the board up, it kind of bows out a little bit, and I'm hoping the wire, now that it's kind of almost in that little recess there, will take care of that. Also trimmed some stuff off. You can see it, that it's not a straight shot anymore. It was interfering with the rubber piece. And I kind of trimmed the corners off here and here because they were, got the tank all bolted up. Trimmed off some of this, the board here was interfering with the rubber piece, so I trimmed that. And the corners here were kind of getting torn up as I would put the board in the car, so I trimmed those out. I am missing one of the captures on the bottom over there. I don't even remember where I got these things. But this will go back in, and then I'll get the gas cap back on and get the rear valance back on, that the leather piece, and be done. Oh well, couldn't resist. Well, must have done something right, because it tracks a heck of a lot straighter, at least the steering wheel does. Unfortunately, the roads out here are pretty severely crowned, so I can't really let go of the wheel. I don't quite have the guts yet to take it onto the little side street, though I could probably get away with it now. But definitely much better than it was, and I think I got it figured out. Don't trust me, not an instructional video.